Have you ever just, looked up at the night sky? That feeling you get. Just wonder, maybe a bit of a confusion about what's really out there.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost universal, that feeling.
Right. And it's exactly how the book Stargazer's Faith kicks things off, reminding us it all started with God creating the heavens and the earth. But what's really interesting lately is how UFOs, or UAPs, I guess, are suddenly being talked about much more seriously.
It's a big shift, isn't it? For years, it was just, fringe stuff, dismissed.
Totally.
But now, with more reports, even the government weighing in, well, you kind of have to look at it differently, more openly, but still, carefully.
And that's exactly our plan for you today. We're diving deep into Barry L. Davis's Stargazer's Faith. You can find it over at stargazersfaith.com. It's available in both digital and paperback.
Good point.
Yeah. And our mission here is really to explore the book chapter by chapter, kind of marvel at the biblical insights, the scientific ones too, that it brings to this whole UFO question.
It's a journey, trying to understand it through faith and reason.
Exactly. And what I really appreciate about Stargazer's Faith is how balanced it feels.
It doesn't just dismiss everything out of hand.
No, but it also avoids, the really wild sensationalism you sometimes see.
Right. It's aiming for something grounded, thoughtful, based on scripture.
Yeah, grounded is a good word. And the book asks these big questions, ones you've probably thought about too, like, are UFOs real? What are they?
Could extraterrestrials be involved, or is it something else entirely? Angels? Demons, maybe?
Yeah, how does it fit with prophecy, if at all? And I think crucially, how should believers even approach this? How do we think about it biblically?
Lots to unpack there.
Definitely. Okay, so let's really dig in. Chapter 1, a biblical foundation, creation, and the cosmos, where it all begins.
Right. Chapter 1 starts, fittingly, with Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Such simple words, but wow.
Exactly. The book really emphasizes this foundational truth. There was a beginning, and before that beginning, God, the sovereign creator.
It sets the stage for everything else. And Stargazer's Faith, it really delves into that phrase, in the beginning, Bereshit, in Hebrew. It's not just like a starting pistol for time. It speaks to God being eternal outside of time.
Yeah, the book makes that great connection to Jesus in John chapter 8, verse 58. Before Abraham was born, I am.
That's powerful. Echoing the I am from Exodus chapter 3, verse 14.
It just hammers home God's timelessness, his sovereignty over everything.
So that starting point, God existing before everything, how does that frame our view?
Well, it means everything we see, everything we study, even things we haven't discovered yet, like UFOs perhaps, it all falls under his authority, his purpose. It's all part of his creation.
Okay. And from there, the chapter looks at the heavens, Shemayim Shmi.
It's
not just one thing, is it?
No, the book describes it as multi-layered. First, there's the first heaven, basically the atmosphere, the air we breathe, where the birds fly, like Genesis chapter 1, verse 20 said.
Okay, tangible.
Yeah, the book connects it to Psalm chapter 135, verse 7 about God making the clouds, and even Jesus talking about God caring for the birds in Matthew chapter 6, verse 26. It's, God's care right here in our daily lives, the heaven we experience directly.
Got it. Then we look up higher to the second heaven.
Right. The stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, that incredible cosmic expanse. Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 16 talks about them being for signs and seasons, lights in the sky.
And the scale is just staggering.
It really is. Stargazer's Faith points out, billions of stars just in our galaxy, and maybe hundreds of billions of galaxies out there.
Mind-boggling.
It makes you think of Isaiah chapter 40, verse 26, lift up your eyes. Who created all these? Or David in Psalm chapter 8, looking up and asking, what is mankind that you are mindful of them?
And he didn't even know the half of it, scientifically speaking.
Exactly. Our modern understanding just amplifies that sense of awe.
Okay, so atmosphere, stars. Then there's the third heaven.
This one's different. It's the spiritual realm. Paul talks about it in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, being caught up to the third heaven or paradise. Stargazer's Faith connects this to Isaiah's vision of God's throne in Isaiah chapter 6 and John's vision in Revelation chapter 4. It's where God dwells in his glory beyond the physical universe we see.
Invisible but real.
Very real, according to Scripture. And it interacts with our world in ways we don't always grasp.
So these three layers, immediate, cosmic, and spiritual, all part of God's creation. And the book emphasizes who did the creating
Right.
through the lens of the New Testament.
Yes, absolutely. It highlights Christ's role. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made.
Can't get much clearer than that.
And Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17 drive it home too. All things, visible and invisible, created through him and for him. And importantly, in him, all things hold together.
So it's not just a past event. He's actively sustaining it all right now.
Yeah, precisely. It's ongoing. Which leads to the question the book explores next. Why? Why did God create all this?
What are the purposes?
Well, Stargazer's faith lays out several. First, pretty obviously, to reflect his glory. Psalm chapter 19, verse 1, the heavens declare the glory of God.
You just have to look up to see that.
Right. Second, to show his power, the sheer scale and complexity. It points to immense power. The book mentions God's challenge to Job in chapter 38 about creation's origins.
Implying it's way beyond human grasp.
Exactly. And it even mentions the angel in 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 35, showing the kind of power operating behind the scenes. Pretty awesome power.
Definitely gives you perspective. What else?
Third, it's meant to stir worship in us. Romans chapter 1, verse 20 says God's invisible qualities are seen in creation, leaving us without excuse.
Makes sense. It draws you towards acknowledging something greater.
And fourth, simply to sustain life. Psalm chapter 104 paints this beautiful picture of a world designed for life to flourish. Seasons, creatures, us. It's all interconnected, deliberate.
It really is an intricate design. So given all that, how should we respond? What's our part?
The book suggests a few things. Humility, first off. Recognizing our place, like Psalm chapter 8, verse 4 implies.
We're small, but valued.
Exactly. Second, wonder. Just letting that awe wash over us, leading to praise, like in Psalm chapter 145.
Let it sink in.
And third, there's a sense of duty. We're made in God's image, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 says. So we have a responsibility, mentioned in Genesis 1, verse 28 and chapter 2, verse 15, to explore, understand, care for creation.
But not worship it.
Right. Romans chapter 1, verse 25 warns against worshiping created things instead of the Creator. So observe, care, but worship God alone.
That's a crucial balance. And how does science fit into this biblical picture? The book addresses that too, right?
It does, very thoughtfully. It argues science doesn't have to contradict faith here. It can actually enrich it.
How so?
Well, for example, the scientific idea that the universe had a definite beginning, that aligns pretty well with Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, doesn't it?
In the beginning. Yeah, it does.
And the fine-tuning of physical laws. It strongly suggests design, which fits perfectly with the Creator God.
Okay.
Plus, discovering things like thousands of exoplanets, it expands our view of God's creative potential, maybe, without undermining Scripture. The book suggests that investigating anything from stars to, yes, even UFOs could potentially reveal more of God's handiwork.
So science can be a tool for appreciating creation more deeply.
I like that.
So wrapping up chapter 1, what's the big takeaway as we head towards discussing UFOs specifically?
The core message is God created everything. Known, unknown, mysterious, it's all his. Romans chapter 11, verse 36 says, for from him and through him and for him are all things. That's our foundation. Whatever we find, whatever mysteries remain, they exist within his sovereign creation.
A solid launch pad, as the book says. Okay, that leads us perfectly into chapter 3, the possibility of extraterrestrial life. This is where things get really intriguing for many people.
Oh, yeah. This topic grabs the imagination, and the chapter starts quite personally with the author talking about his own childhood wonder, reading books like The Forgotten Door.
Okay.
And then the big impact of that 1996 announcement about possible life signs in the Martian meteorite, ALH 84001.
I remember that. Big news back then.
Huge. And what's interesting is the author's position. He's a pastor, holds scripture as inerrant, but also finds many UFO witness accounts credible.
So he's holding that tension.
Exactly. It sets up a really balanced look at the possibilities, not just shutting the door immediately.
That makes sense. So starting again from Genesis 1, verse 1, but focusing now on the sheer scale of the heavens, Shemaim.
Right. The book reminds us heavens means way more than just our sky. It's countless stars, countless galaxies.
NASA's numbers are just astronomical, literally.
Billions and billions, yeah. And the book quotes Psalm chapter 104, verse 24. How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. So the natural question arises, in all that vastness, could there be life elsewhere?
But then there's this silence.
The silence, exactly. So much space, seemingly so empty of signals, at least that we've detected. It's a paradox.
Does the book find any hints in Scripture itself about life out there?
Well, it's careful to say Scripture doesn't give a clear yes or no to, little green men.
Right.
But it points to passages like Job chapter 38, verses 4 through 7, the morning stars singing at creation, usually seen as angels, but it shows the cosmos wasn't empty before us.
Interesting. Angels count as non-human intelligence.
They certainly do. And Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 6 talks about the starry host and the multitudes of heaven worshiping God. Could that host include more than just angels? The book leaves it open.
Speculative, but possible within the text.
And then it brings in the science, Kepler finding over 5,000 exoplanets by 2025, according to NASA. Naturally, you wonder if any could support life.
It's amazing how old texts and new discoveries keep asking similar questions. But then the book tackles a really tricky theological part. The fall. Adam's sin.
Yeah, this gets complex. Romans chapter 5, verse 12 says, sin and death entered the world, the cosmos, through Adam, affecting all people.
So the question is, does cosmos include planet Zorg?
Huh? Pretty much. Were beings light years away impacted by Adam's choice? Or could they be unfallen, living without sin and death?
Wow, that's a heavy thought.
It is. And the book brings up the 1976 Tehran UFO incident, that documented encounter, as a sort of real-world prompt for these kinds of theological puzzles.
It makes it less abstract.
Right. It also mentions C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet, exploring that very idea of unfallen beings and the current search for biosignatures by the Webb telescope. These questions aren't just academic, they're potentially real.
So if other beings exist, their whole relationship with God, sin, redemption might be completely different.
Could be. But the book strongly circles back to affirm humanity's unique place.
How so?
It stresses Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, we are made in God's image, the imago Dei, that capacity for reason, love, relationship with God.
That's central.
And Psalm chapter 8, verses 3 through 5, made a little lower than the angels, crowned with glory. Even comparing it to scientific finds, like organics on Mars, the book highlights Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, God breathing life into humans specifically.
A unique connection.
Yes, and ultimately, Stargazer's faith links being image bearers to knowing God, referencing Colossians chapter 3, verse 10, and says this is uniquely sealed for us through the cross.
So even with potential life elsewhere, our story, our relationship with God, is distinct.
That's the biblical emphasis. And the chapter wraps up by mentioning other Christian thinkers who've pondered this.
Like who?
People like Thomas Aquinas on God's creative freedom, C.S. Lewis, again, in his essay Religion and Rocketry, considering different possibilities for other worlds, Dr. Hugh Ross, trying to harmonize science and faith.
So there's a history of faithful people thinking about this.
Definitely. And it ends by bringing it back to that sense of humility under the stars, referencing Job chapter 38, verse 4. We just don't know everything God knows.
A good place to land. Okay, so pulling back from these first few chapters of Stargazer's faith, what are the main takeaways for you?
Well, first, that incredibly strong biblical foundation. God as creator, the cosmos reflecting his glory and purpose. That's non-negotiable. And second, a really careful, thoughtful look at the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Scripture doesn't rule it out, but it strongly affirms our unique place as image bearers. The book handles that tension really well, I think.
It really does. It balances faith and, well, honest curiosity. Gives you a framework.
Exactly.
So for you listening, here's something to chew on. Keep thinking about that sheer scale of creation, but also our special, unique role within it. Hold on to the truths we do know from Scripture, while staying open to the mysteries God might still reveal in the universe he made.
It's a fascinating balance.
It really is. And hey, if this conversation has sparked your interest and you want to go way deeper, definitely check out Stargazer's Faith by Barry L. Davis. Again, it's at stargazersfaith.com, digital and paperback. It's a fantastic guide for this journey.